everyone, it's Leslie from Clem&Thyme Nutrition. And in this video, I'm going to talk about thyroid health. So, we could talk here for hours and hours and hours about thyroid health, but I'm going to try and keep it to a small summary video of the big highlights, the big things that we want to think about when we're talking about helping our thyroid be as healthy as it possibly can. Now, of course, there's hypothyroidism and there's hyperthyroidism. So hypo is underactive, hyper is overactive. So in this video, I'm mainly going to be talking about hypothyroidism, so underactive thyroid, okay? So our thyroid, where do we begin? And I don't want to get too technical on this. Like I said, this is just kind of an overview, but our thyroid is a gland that sits at the base of the front of our neck, okay? So it produces a few hormones. It produces T3, and it also produces T4. Okay, so those hormones are thyroid hormones, and they greatly affect our metabolism, our body temperature, our hormone creation, our energy levels. They actually affect our cardiovascular health and our heart rate. They also affect our sleep and our mood. So there's a lot going on with our thyroid that a lot of people don't give it credit for. So when you have thyroid dysfunction, think of all the other things in your body that could be a little, out of whack. Okay. So, like I already spoke about, T3, T4, and you might be saying, well, what about TSH? It's because that's what a lot of people have heard about. When you get your thyroid checked, a lot of doctors just pull a TSH level, which means it's a thyroid stimulating hormone. But you heard that right. Thyroid stimulating hormone. It's not actually the hormone itself. So TSH is actually secreted from the pituitary gland. So you need a healthy pituitary gland to then get the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, to secrete. Okay. And the TSH is important because it actually helps with the conversion or the creation of T3 and T4. So I know I told you I wasn't going to get into all the details here, but the big thing I want you to get, I'm not going to go into all the labs and all the ranges, but the big things, take-home messages that I want you to realize are when you get blood work done from your doctor, you should ask for a full thyroid panel with antibodies. Because like I said, a lot of doctors just order a TSH level, and that's not the full picture. If you just do that, it's not really telling what's going on with your thyroid hormone production and whether it's converting the way that it needs to be, okay? So when I say a full thyroid panel, I mean a TSH, a free T3, a free T4. I would like a reverse T3 because you don't want your T3 actually reversing and not going the way that it needs to be, okay? And the other things are we really like to know thyroid antibodies with people's lab work. So antibodies I'm going to get to in a second, but really if you have thyroid antibodies present, then that's telling me it's an autoimmune thyroid condition. So that your thyroid itself is kind of, autoimmune conditions are like our body itself is kind of attacking itself. So it's important to know whether or not yours is autoimmune thyroid or whether it's just an underactive hypothyroidism, okay? So, and while we're talking about this, most people are like, well, I just have hypothyroidism, because we'll say, well, do you have Hashimoto's is what the name is called. I know it's so technical, right? All of these things. But if you have an autoimmune hypothyroidism, it is actually called Hashimoto's. So a lot of time people will say, do you have Hashimoto's? And they'll say, no, I just have a hypothyroidism. And I'm like, well, do you know? Because did your doctor actually run the antibodies to figure out whether or not you have Hashimoto's? Or did they just label it hypothyroidism? Because it really is important to know whether it's autoimmune in nature or it's not. Because if it's autoimmune, then you're more likely to have other autoimmune conditions. And we approach it a little bit differently, okay? And guess what? 80 to 90% of hypothyroidism cases are actually the autoimmune version, the Hashimoto's. So if you have underactive hypothyroidism, the chances are good that it's actually Hashimoto's. Because like I just said, 80 to 90% of the people have that form. Now, I know I said in this video, I'm pretty much talking about hypothyroidism, and I am, but if you're thinking, oh, what about hyperthyroidism is overactive thyroid. And guess what? You can have an autoimmune form of overactive thyroid as well. And that's called Graves' disease. Okay. That's all I'm going to talk about hyperthyroidism. Okay. So why do people get thyroidism or thyroid conditions? Why do people get hypothyroidism? I get asked, what did I do wrong? Right. And sometimes you did nothing wrong, right? It could be genetic. There are genes that play a role in your thyroid. You could have thyroid tissue damage. You could have a tumor growth. There are several reasons why out of your control. A lot of times people's hormones and becoming pregnant do a lot of crazy things to your thyroid as well. So a lot of times we see people, they had fine thyroid numbers and then they got pregnant and then now their numbers are different. There are some things that are within your control. Okay. There are some medications that impact your thyroid, your chances of having hypothyroidism. So birth control, beta blockers, corticoids, I can never say that, anti-epileptic drugs. And then the big things are lifestyle that are in our control. Some people would say they're not as much in our control. It's, definitely debated, but having weight loss surgery, going on a crazy strict calorie restriction or restricting carbohydrates significantly for an extended amount of time, inadequate or excessive iodine intake can cause hypothyroidism. Also, gut dysbiosis, like having a leaky gut or having poor gut health, can actually impact your thyroid as well. So some of those are in your control a little bit more so than, just saying genetics, Okay, so moving on. Also having Epstein-Barr virus having like a severe kind of virus, kind of like pregnancy, like I said, that's out of your control, makes your body do kind of crazy things. And so hypothyroidism could be a cause of if you had the Epstein-Barr virus or some nutrient deficiencies as well. Okay. So what are some signs and symptoms to think of? When I think of hypothyroidism, I think of extremely tired, fatigued, dry skin, constipated, sleep disturbances, mood disturbances, gaining weight, having a goiter, obviously, and having a hoarse voice, okay? Losing your hair, infertility, having there's a big correlation between having hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid, and having high cholesterol levels. So that's also something to think of. If you're always cold, if you're retaining fluid, those are the things that I think of when I think of somebody that has hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid conditions. Okay. So what things can I do to help if I've been diagnosed? So we'll talk about diet first, then we'll get into some lifestyle things. So overall, you heard me say if you're under consuming calories, carbohydrates, you don't have a well-balanced diet, that is the biggest thing to start with, is starting to get a very nutrient-rich diet, because our thyroid needs a ton of nutrients to convert them to the active form. So I kind of skipped over that, but our thyroid actually has to convert T4, which is inactive thyroid hormone, to T3, the active thyroid hormone. And we need a lot of nutrients to help us with that. So just the nutrients to create the thyroid hormone, we need like iron, iodine, but not excessive iodine, tyrosine, which is an amino acid, zinc, selenium, tons of vitamins, vitamin E, all your B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D. That's just to create the thyroid hormone itself. Now to do the conversion of T4 to T3, you need zinc and selenium again. And we also need vitamin A and zinc to help with our sensitivity of thyroid. So that's a lot of vitamins. So if you're just eating Cheetos and Doritos and Oreos and drinking Coca-Cola, then you're probably not getting all of those nutrients. So it's no wonder you could have a thyroid problem if you're eating a crappy diet. The other thing is people I already spoke of people that go on really low calorie diets and are limiting their carbohydrates significantly. That also can lead to thyroid dysfunction. Okay. So after we've got a good balanced diet, we're eating all of our macronutrients, balanced meals every day. We're not going super long without eating. We're not over intermittent fasting, those things. Then we definitely want to move on to balancing our blood sugar for sure. So not eating excessive carbohydrates either is not good. Focusing on our gut health, because like I said, if you have too much or if you have poor gut health, then you're also going to be at risk for thyroid dysfunction. Really, not over abusing alcohol, not eating a ton of processed foods. Gluten intake and dairy intake are definitely controversial with thyroid dysfunction. Gluten is something definitely I would consider limiting, especially if you have the autoimmune Hashimoto's form of hypothyroidism. We also want to watch our body care products and environmental toxins because those actually play a role with our thyroid dysfunction. So iodine can be displaced if you consume too much bromine, chlorine, or fluoride. And so we need adequate iodine, as I already spoke about, to convert that thyroid hormone. So you don't want to overconsume, things that have chlorine, fluoride, and bromine in them. Okay. Now, what about some lifestyle things? So making sure we're getting adequate sleep, not stressing out, and not over exercising. Exercising a good amount, but like incorporating some moderate light exercise, not doing tons of cardio, tons of HIIT training, because that's not good for our thyroid as well. Okay. So those are the big things that I think of. And I know I went through that super quick, but I wanted to just give a brief overview of things to do for your thyroid. So I think a lot of people don't take to heart the stress and the sleep connection, because they want to go to, what supplement can I take? What food do I need to avoid? A very reductionistic attitude, but we really need to nurture our thyroid. So eating balanced meals, balancing our blood sugar, working on our gut health, eating all those nutrients, which we're going to get from eating tons of produce, seafood, meats in general, protein in general, eggs, egg yolks, nuts and seeds, beans, fruit, those are all well-balanced things that can nurture our thyroid. And then getting 7 to 9 hours of well-rested sleep a night, working on our stress management, and moving our body every day, but not over-exercising. So those are the main key points that I want you guys to think of when you think of nourishing your thyroid and having good thyroid health. So let me know if you guys have questions. Feel free to come and follow us at clementime.com is our website. On Instagram and social media, Facebook, follow us there. And we post tons of content on thyroid health and other conditions as well.